Okay, so here we go. I'll start with the book. This is a book called The Life and Times of Ida B. Wells and Amelia Lano Leo. And he presented, and so he actually wrote a book about Ida B. Wells, who was also here, and we believe here at the conference. He wrote an actual children's book as part of his project. And then we have this piece. I probably should save that. No, I'm gonna go ahead. So this piece is by Billy, and he has a ceramic sculpture, and it's called, he's from Hotchkiss School, boarding school here, private boarding school here in the area. And this is his piece of his representation. He presented on lynching, and it was powerful. That one I'm still processing. But this is his piece, and he talked about the depictions, whether it was the carnival-like experience of lynching or and the purpose of it, and how much it happened in our history, and how it was permitted to go on for so long. And of course, hanging from a tree. He has a picture and a piece where this, for him, at the end of it was hope, with the extension of the arm being a tree branch. It's broken off, but for him, this is what he got out of it, is the hope that still exists now, and that we can go forward. It was an amazing presentation. So I'm sure we'll hear a lot about this young man. And then this one is by Emily Arroyo. And this is, she calls it a caged bird flying high. And this one is just amazing. I'm gonna just give you a couple of things that she spoke about in her piece. She focused on the poem by Paul Laurence Dunbar, and she was focusing on the Harlem Renaissance and the poem called Sympathy. And it was written before the Harlem Renaissance, but for her it symbolized the movement from pain and prejudice to a movement of beauty and hope. And she believes that religion is an important part of beauty for giving hope, and that Joel Spingarn, the owner of Troutbeck at the time, he wrote a poetry as well called Poetry and Religion. And that's what inspired this piece for her. And so the full shadow behind the dove is the incomplete nature of the wings of freedom, but it's also a reminder of the possibility of flight and movement. My goodness. And I'd like to read the poem, short one by Joel Spingarn that she has here. It says, Poetry and Religion by Joel Spingarn. A God who dies between two thieves, a poem of life achieves, and I, singing of bird and tree, feel a religious ecstasy. Who shall say where each begins? Poems, religions, virtues, sins. Amazing. High school students. Here's another one from Hotchkiss School. This is a charcoal art piece using charcoal, and this is by Anna Gardner. And this is when the house was owned by the original owners, Bentons, Charles Everett Benton. I just think this is absolutely amazing. The house did burn down at one point, and they had to rebuild. It's a beautiful property. This piece, oh my gosh. This piece is called I Love This Cultured Hell by Luke Lokelm, 2022 senior. And it's inspired by the poem called America, written by Claude McKay. He was born in Jamaica in 1889, and after moving to the United States, he came here and talked about his love for the country, and he wanted to see the beauty instead of the hatefulness, because he he felt immersed in strength while resisting cruelty. But what she said for her, she was that it's the interviewing of the flowers here in the middle, centered in every direction, are native flowers from where he lived in Jamaica, New York, and Kansas. And they're bursting outward in a colorful display. The inner beauty is exposed as a result of the torturous environment, demonstrating the same love that McKay felt. And lastly, she was inspired by the use of the map of another artist that overlays the hybrid change-making creatures on the top of the historical documents to, reclaim power. And so this is just, I just pulling the strings. Do you see that? It just keeps sticking out to me is the inner beauty being exposed as a result of torturous environment. Okay, the next one we have is called Self-Discovery. My goodness. These are all teenagers. This is by Annie Dong, 23. And she's been exploring the metaphorical representations of the human experience. This portrait was inspired by the poem of Langston Hughes' Theme for English B, where he questions self-identity and its connections to his work. The poem for her added another layer to her interpretation. External efforts of attaining space in a community often creates immense internal uncertainties, and she basically chose to illustrate her friend whose hands covered in white symbolically illustrate the loss or erasures of one's sense of self through attempts of assimilation. Wow. The mixed expression, although she said was unplanned, implies loss, surrender, confusion, but also tranquility, she said, and an ease as she ponders her place and her self-identity. Absolutely amazing. And then we have the lithograph or the data, I think it's called the data art presentation, and this is by Sol B. King. She's from Hotchkiss School as well. She was kind of fascinated with Black history, and she did use the data to do this particular art piece, and she was looking at the inconsistent. Trying to make sure I see it. I don't want to mess up her presentation, so I'm taking my time. Okay, so overall she's explaining the data and just the history of Hotchkiss students, and I just think over time, and this is from 2013 to 2021, the faculty and staff of color, the different ethnicities, the foreign countries represented, their enrollment rates, yes, and so art in every form. And then I have over here, this is called The Exhibition of Forgotten Data Visualized by Annie Yu, I believe, XU. And so she's discussing the 1900 Paris Exposition showcase, and that was in Paris. And so she was talking about representing the United States and one of America's cultural diverse voices, W.E.B. Du Bois and Thomas J. Calloway, two of the major figures of the EMEA conference here at Troutbeck. They represented modernity of Black Americans through exhibition, The American Negro at Paris, highlighting the history of Black Americans, their present condition, and their education, as well as their literature. This is so good. I love it. Beautiful. So this is just, and I haven't even gone through the presentations, but this is the space. They did amazing, amazing.